Welcome back to Behind Enemy Lines with Terry and Mike, and our special guest again, Professor Rick Gadante. I like this guy not just because he's Italian, not because he's just from Chicago, but also because he's fighting against the indoctrination of our children. In any grade now. It goes all the way to grammar school, but he was a professor, and he'll give his little bio before we get started and jump into some of the current things. But I mean, that's how I got into this battles for, I mean, there's a battle for our children. We're in a war for our kids, right? And, Rick put his career, lost his career because of doing the right thing. And unfortunately, we don't have enough people doing the right thing. So I'm proud and honored to have him on here. And hopefully it'll give some encouragement to other people to stand up and do what you need to do to save our country for our kids. Enough of letting these people, step all over us and destroy the educational system. So, Rick, why don't you do the elevator pitch of who you are in case people didn't see you last time, or if they haven't seen you on Fox News, right? So go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rick Dante. I was the only conservative, straight white male professor, millennial aged, under age 45, to ever been tenured in America in the era of DEI.
The only
finalist for the astronaut position. Yeah, the only.
That is incredible.
Oh,
Sorry,
cool.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
now,
cool.
I mean, I didn't realize it at first for a while, and then I started asking who else. What do you know?
Unbelievable.
There may be some conservatives who may be left under age 45 in academia, but you wouldn't know about them because they're closeted.
Yes.
I wasn't closeted.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the public, and I was open about my beliefs. And we told the truth, and we paid the price. But I made it basically through that gauntlet to that top of that mountain. As a finalist for the NASA astronaut position. Did several NASA missions. The Hera mission, NASA's largest psychology study for long duration spaceflight. I'm the only psychologist to ever have done that on the inside, and then to also have been a principal investigator, neuroscientist, and psychologist on the outside of astronaut cognition, living underwater. Alumni of the Year for UC Davis in 2019, a 250,000 alum. Actually Diversity Fellow of the American Psychological Association and the National Institute of Health, 3-time award winner of the LRP from the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, Rhodes Scholar finalist. And when the president of Florida Tech told us on video that he lied to the face of Ron DeSantis and the administration to defraud them and the Trump administration of $76 million each year in DEI, I blew the whistle with James O'Keefe and was fired for that, and was first offered a $100,000 buyout of hush money. So they could buy my silence so that you could never know the truth. So everything I'm telling you, and I've told you guys since this happened back in August, everything I'm telling you today cost me $100,000 and probably over $40 million of lifetime salary past age 80 to when professors tend to retire and benefits, so that you can know the truth. And so I had a baby, had a toddler and a postpartum wife, lost her medical, lost her salary, so that you can know the truth, because we are tired of living in a world of lies.
Yes.
And our children to not just have food in their mouths, but to have food in their souls, to be inspired that they come from a family of integrity, but a nation that upholds integrity, and that the truth matters.
Yeah. Well, that's why, again, people need to support people like you that are brave enough to come forward, because it's career suicide to come forward and actually shine a light on what's going on in academia, even though we've talked about this over and over ago on this program, on others, about the problem. The root of our problem right now is in our education system, that we have so many people teaching from kindergarten through college that are not there to educate, they are there to indoctrinate. It's all these glorified wine mom, blue-haired moonbats that are in the classroom that want your kids to be partisan weapons. They don't want to educate them. They don't want to teach them math, science, reading, comprehension, independent thought. They want to indoctrinate them. They want them to be members of the Church of the LGBTQ. They want them bought, where they buy in 100% to this leftist ideology that's just a woke mind virus that's infecting our country and destroying the world right now. And if we don't have people like you on the inside that are brave enough to stand up, then it's going to continue. But it's time to put our foot down about this and end it. Most of these people should not be anywhere near children. Half of them should be on sexual predator lists and not allowed anywhere near a grade school, a high school, or a college. But we've got to start fighting the problem for what it is, identify it, and eliminate it. But again, like you've said, they're hiding this. They changed the name. It's no longer DEI. It's whatever. The reason I was so shocked when you said that, like, and I think you're right. I was thinking about it. Like the only, I graduated from college in 2012, and the only conservative younger professor I had that was under 45 was black. Wasn't even a white guy. It was a black dude that'd been in the military, had his whole perspective changed when he was in there. He was a history professor, of course. That's the only younger, verifiably conservative professor that I had.
Yeah, well,
One of
the
the
thing
things that opened my eyes when my twins are freshmen in college, we were doing college tours in Florida and all over the place, and every college they had some flavor of DEI. Some of the kids that were given tours in two of the colleges, they announced their pronouns when they were introducing what parent group that they were going with. And I found that disgusting. You know, one of them, we were stuck with one that had these pride earrings, and you know, we started the tour. I was staring at her disgust so much she took them off. My wife hit me, but I was like, you know, that stuff doesn't belong in school, front and center like that. It's not why they're in school. And they, you know, in some cases, I think they made that a priority, Rick. You know, what I mean, prioritize that.
I think so. And in fact, I know so. And I think that one of the big problems is that for far too long and too many decades, we have not made it a priority to make our education of our children, but also importantly, our adults in the universities and the colleges, be provided a true and balanced education of what is true, real, and honest about the world. And they're taught now that, you know, there's a gender unicorn. That's not true. There's never been a gender unicorn. So there shouldn't be federal funds going to pay places to teach false things. I love free speech. I love teaching different ideologies. I welcome that. I don't think that that's necessarily a problem at too tight of a political lens. But if you're teaching false things, if you're teaching critical race theory, if you're teaching that, you know, anti-American hate into our students, our young men and
revisionist history too.
University.
Revisionist
we have
history.
Not made that a priority. We have given that up as a movement, going back past through Reagan, certainly through Bush. We sent all the young millennials out to the global war on terror while their families stayed at home waiting for them. And, you know, by some path of God's will, I stayed in academia instead of pursuing the military route while the ship was abandoned. And, you know, like I said, I hadn't thought about it for a little while, but then I started thinking about, well, who else would be under age 45, publicly known to be conservative as an intellectual or scientific leader in society? We have a few conservatives left in academia. They are 90-year-old Thomas Sowell. People point out Jordan Peterson. I don't think he's very conservative based on some of the things he said. He's also a boomer. We have boomers. We have maybe a few lingering Gen Xs. And but they're, frankly speaking, there really aren't any millennial, straight white male, open conservatives who are tenured in America. And I was the only one in the DEI era. And the road to get there was so arduous. And I had to deal with so many different layers of discrimination, being held back. That Compact magazine article that came out in December of 2025, right before Christmas, described the impact on millennial-aged men in this country from decades of discrimination of college admissions, graduate admissions, jobs, scholarships, fellowships, everything across the board, medical residencies. They were disincentivized to even try to apply. And to Terry's point, we haven't made our future the priority. We haven't prioritized the future of our nation by teaching the next generation, by having a stable. And right now, the bullpen is empty. I was the last guy in the bullpen. I was the only guy in the bullpen. And outside of you guys and a few other people in the media, James O'Keefe and a few others, there has been no one in Con Inc. who has done anything to help lend a hand, because it seems they want to have given up the ship. They don't want anybody in the bullpen. They want the left hitting home runs, grand slams, loading the bases, and having no one in there left to pitch.
Yeah, that's the danger. Like I'm a boomer. I'm one of the younger boomers, but I think that my generation, I didn't go to college right away when I was older, but that generation, my generation, was really brainwashed in college, right? It's the freaks from the '60s that became the teachers and the professors, right? And they started pushing that stuff, and then it only just grew like a cancer every decade until it got to where we're at this point. And once they occupied the colleges, universities, they crept into the high schools, and they are
Yep.
fairly entrenched. And then now it's the grammar schools, the
Well, it's
gender
because they
unicorns.
train the teachers. They train
Yeah,
teachers. They trained our students in college to get degrees in education so that they can become the teachers. So the teachers
yep,
think they're teaching things that are correct to our elementary, junior high, high school kids, because that's what they're qualified, certified, and credentialed through their college training and education
yes,
processes. Because exactly as you said, it was infiltrated in the early 50s and 60s, so that there's multi-generational layers embedded into the approval process of accreditations. We're seeing this now in the American Bar Association on the legal side. They're starting to get some competition to the accreditation process for lawyers,
oh
we don't.
really?
Oh yeah, a
What
few
is
of the.
it? Could you explain that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I
When you
think the
say
American Bar
competition, what does that mean?
Association has had a stranglehold on who gets to be called a lawyer, because they're the only ones that kind of administer the test for being barred. And from what I
Uh-huh.
gather, and I'm not a lawyer, it's kind of a peripheral gathering of what I've just seen in drive-by news, is there are some states that have now starting to hold the American Bar Association accountable
Oh,
to
good.
that
That's good.
monopoly effectively. Same thing with doctors, right? When the American Medical Association is the one that gives you your certification, you're
Yeah,
held under their thumb. And we've seen this. We all lived through COVID. We all seen the tyranny that can happen.
yeah,
And so, this is a big battle that I tried to tell people of from the inside, deep behind enemy lines, that they don't realize how many decades back we are in this fight, because how many layers like that there are left to repeal. So, DEI, you mentioned earlier, that I was just on the phone with my congressman today. He's like, well, I voted to end DEI. It's done. I said, pal, it hasn't gone anywhere. What do you mean it's done? My entire undercover work with O'Keefe. Actually, I wasn't even undercover. I was overcover. They knew who I was, and I
Yeah.
didn't dress up or do anything. But I said it literally showed that they're undermining, lying to comply. Their DEI went trans. There you go. DEI went trans.
Yeah. It now
DEI
identifies as something else.
it
Yes.
now identifies as something else, but it's the same anatomy. I absolutely promise you, it is the anatomy
Yeah.
of anti-American hate. It
yeah,
is the anatomy of discrimination. It is the anatomy of hostility, discrimination, anti-American hate, and there's nothing you can change it. You can't put lipstick on that tranny.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And to your point with the bar associations, even there, it's going different directions. I think it's Massachusetts has kind of gone the other direction, where they've gone after several conservatives' license. They're making it more difficult, or that's alleged, they're making it more difficult for conservative leading students coming out of college. And it's the same thing. It's to control access. It's control who has the levers of power. I mean, there's a great person I talked to. Unfortunately, I couldn't get her to come on and state things publicly, but she had worked in a lot of these medical journals for publications that are used for research purposes, for other things like that. And same thing, like it changed. She said 10 years ago, that's when it became agenda driven, that they weren't supposed to publish studies about, say, crime molestation rates with gay parents, things like that. All of a sudden, these things, which were legitimate research based on documents from the state, all of a sudden they were being discouraged. We're even told, your funding's going to get pulled. This $100,000 a year so-and-so donates. Well, if you guys publish this study, we don't care how good the material is. You're not allowed to do it anymore. If you do that, the funding's gone, and we'll end up closing down your publication. And we've heard this from others, too, that have come forward regarding various sciences, especially when it comes to environmentalism, things like that, where you're not supposed to publish anything that could put somebody's funding in jeopardy, or dispute findings at such and such a college, or call into question research methodology, or anything. That if you take the other side in the argument, they will shut you down and make sure you don't have a voice anymore, so they can control the conversation and thus control the narrative.
Yeah, and the thing that I really want to talk about today, and I'm here share with you is that when we talk about prioritizing education and giving that up as a priority, that has led way to the indoctrination. I'm not talking about indoctrination with unicorns or those
Yeah.
kind of things
Hmm.
and pronouns. Those are awful, slippery slopes, and we all know where they go.
Yeah.
And it's not to minimize that at all, but what I've been working on, and I'd love to share with you a little bit about what's been happening, is the deep layer indoctrination of universities as American madrasas, as I'm calling them,
Hmm.
because the level of indoctrination is not towards getting people to change their pronouns. It's getting people to take violent action against the
Hate
president
and fight.
and
Yep.
the cabinet, that the entire, you know, continuity of governance that we saw attacked by the assassin at the White House Correspondents Association dinner. I don't know, 7, 10 days ago. It's been kind of a blur for me. But what struck me as I was aghast and appalled watching that, as I'm sure everybody was they said this guy came from Cal State Dominguez Hills, and I said, "Oh my goodness, I have a story that came out of a video that I captured of the president of Cal State Dominguez Hills actually indoctrinating Cal State Dominguez Hills with this anti-American hate." He says everybody knows the Trump administration ain't liking black folk or Latino folk
Mm.
or immigrants. He is
And it's so
teaching his
false.
students that his government and his president hates him, which to my knowledge is not true. He's teaching them
Right.
this indoctrination of hate, of aggrieved status, and radicalizing them to become these domestic terror jihadists that, by the grace of God, he probably looks like he tripped over his own 2 feet. Despite the best attempts of the Secret Service to let him in, he was averted disaster. And so I called out,
Yes.
as you see on the screen there, this president in that recording I captured. This was September 4th, 2025, a week before Charlie Kirk was murdered, also on a college campus, also by a college indoctrinated, completely changed young man
Yeah.
after just a few short years in these American
Hmm.
madrasas of obscure universities. And I said, respectfully, sir, I said, you think that everybody who's white has what he calls residual white supremacy, that he said he thinks he needs to disrupt and dislodge and make the white people uncomfortable. And I said, you know, I'm I'm white. I'm also part Native American. I said, which of that part of me do you think is residual white supremacy? And what have you ever seen me do to exhibit that? And how do you think you need to disrupt and dislodge me? Because you think I have assumptions that you don't even know me, but you think I have assumptions based on his lecture that he was teaching the campus to and teaching other professional psychologists. This is the American Psychological Associations. I think it was the Leadership Development Institutes, the psychologists and professors from around the country were tapped into this Zoom call. It was publicly available. It was not undercover in any respect. I actually have the video. It's been online for almost a year now, and he says we can distribute it. It's free and public. They're teaching them to indoctrinate their campuses with these beliefs that we have these underlying white supremacist assumptions that he thinks need to be disrupted and dislodged, because he thinks that I have my foot, and he said he thinks white women who voted for Trump have their foot on the necks of black people. Now, this young man who attacked President Trump's cabinet, the president, the vice president, all the White House press corps, Secretary Hegseth, he happened to be black too. Do you think that culture permeated down from the top?
Hmm.
Absolutely. And how do we know that? Because when I talked to the Fox News reporter who published that story, he captured corroborating testimony of others on campus who said, yes, that's absolutely a culture of fear, discrimination, and hostility that is fostered under that leadership, as we know it always is, that makes it these little madrasas, these terrorist breeding grounds that, after 25 years as an academia professor and tenured professor, I took much delight in finally getting quoted by Fox News calling colleges madrasas of terrorist breeding grounds, because they are. I think the time is now where, that's not hyperbole anymore. He just radicalized one of the students on his campus to be graduated in May of 2025, and, within less than a year, to take direct action to try to take out not just the president of the United States, but the entire line of succession. And what
Yeah.
I'll add to you guys is this: is there's a lot of slop out there from social media conservative commentators, people like Chris Rufo, Greg
Hmm.
Gutfield, Andrew Colvett. This isn't a personal thing on them. What I'm saying is that there's slop that they're putting out, blaming social media for his radicalization. And I can say, no, it wasn't social media that radicalized him. It was, it wasn't tapping into Reddit or checking into Blue Sky a couple times a day. It was living in a culture of immersion, of this indoctrination. There's way more than just pronouns.
Yes.
Indoctrination of radicalization that puts these ideas, these ideas get into those social media commentators, but they come from
It's a religion.
of the embryonic womb for this domestic terror ideology is the college campuses. They are federally funded. And
Yes.
and that's where this is coming from. Yes, I fully agree. There's elements of social media, and I think that, perfectly frank, I think I've been on your show before after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, Mike and Terry.
Yep.
Where I actually advocated for a widespread RICO network arrest and dragnet of the media who've provided material support to the radicalization of Antifa violence and other things like that. So I'm not letting the media off the hook. That's not the part that I think is sloppy. What I'm saying is they're not carrying the brunt of this in the way that the deeper seeds of the embryonic womb that is growing this embryo of ideological hate. And it's not just Cal State Dominguez Hills. There's 100 other completely obscure and well-known colleges all over the country. Yeah. They're breeding 1,000 of these people to just get pushed over the edge.
That's look what they did to the Jewish community, right? And the protests and the physical violence and all these numbers of university. And then it becomes like a fad that they want to be part of, even if they maybe are not fully indoctrinated. It becomes fad and it's supported, or the school turns the other, looks the other way. And that is another way of enabling this violence. And they
and that's
they don't
where the
care.
leadership comes from, Terry. So when we talk about this president, right? I've never seen the president together with the president of that university. His name is Dr. Thomas Parham. He had a vote of no confidence. The guy actually kicked out of the job after my video came out. But I've never seen him together with Cole Allen, but I don't need to, because when you're building that culture, that's how you build a terrorist. That's how you build a jihadi training camp. Is so I'm sure in moments of steam or exhaustion or whatever, we all have crazy thoughts going through our head. I'm a psychologist. I'm a tenured psychologist. We have our moments of passion. But what we also have are our communities of sanity. Your friends, your colleagues, your coworkers, your teachers, your professors, your leaders, everyone around you who, you might say, hey, did that happen? Or was I right to see this or feel this? Or, oh, I really want to get this guy. And they kind of talk you off the ledge because they can bring you back from that edge with a little bit of sanity. And that's not happening.
When everybody's on the edge, they're not going to help you.
No, when this guy's bred and led by these leaders. And this guy was a critical race theorist from the 60s, Thomas Parham. When these students are bred and led by people like that, then when they have those moments and they talk to their friends or colleagues or professors in the luncheon or the quad or the gym or whatever, they're like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. He is racist. He does hate you. Yeah, you should do something about it. As opposed to, hey, man, yeah, we all have those moments. Brush it off. That's the culture of an American madrasas. That's how you build a terrorist, is you build the culture. It's just like a RICO in the mob. Terry, I know you're a Chicago guy. The Mafia Don doesn't have to say pull the trigger. He builds the community. He builds the network. They all know what he means. And when they all want to go and do something, they don't necessarily need permission to do it because they know they're going to have wide network level support after they do the crime, which is exactly what these leftist terrorists know, that the media will cover for them. The prosecutors from Soros will cover for them. The weak rhinos will absolutely cover for them more than anybody.
These are
the indoctrinations.
With the Downers Grove High School, where my kids went to Downers Grove, there's north and south. And what was it, about 5 months ago, Mike? Radical indoctrination, hates the right, all that shit they're teaching. Now I went there, they had a table set up by 23-year-olds right in front of the front doors on the sidewalk that was sponsored walk out of school at 2:00, and they were Marxist communist, handing out propaganda to the kids. Now, a normal school or, administration should have got out and said, get your asses out of here. They turned the other cheek and let them do it. And that's bullshit. That's another extension of the indoctrination of our kids.
And nobody knows about this, Terry, because there are nobody left in the bullpen educating our children. There are
Yes.
no people under age 45 like that. Like I was referring to earlier. I started looking around, like, and I actually asked Grok. I said, "Tell me somebody, who doesn't have gray hair, who is tenured, who is a substantive published scientist or scholar, who's openly conservative, straight white male." I got returns of Jordan Peterson, who met none of those criteria. Like,
Yes.
they're just not out there. And if they are, they're closeted, which is a problem because that means they're living in a culture of fear. But really, they were driven away to tech or crypto or everything else during their early years of their careers in their 20s and 30s when they realized this is a hostile environment of a community and a culture that we use to build and train our future leaders. The CIA recruits from college campuses. Our military leader sends our ROTC to get trained there. Law schools, medical schools, engineers, everyone's getting indoctrinated by this, and there's no one left standing as a voice of sanity with colleagues or other people to be like, that's an interesting idea, but no. How about, have you thought about it this other way there? It has reached a point to where it's enabling these American madrasas to serve as domestic terrorist breeding grounds. And the most important part to me beyond that is that we are paying for this. And this is one of the articles that Fox News covered just this past week, was the fact that I grabbed this viral picture of Pete Hegseth standing up like a man, protecting his wife, protecting the table, just like Stephen Miller was. As the shooting was happening and the chaos, the fog of war, they have no idea what's happening. They're standing up. They could have been the ones standing tall, taking the shots. Well, guess what? Pete Hegseth paid that university $800,000 that year. How do I know? Because I caught it. When I caught that president, Thomas Parham at Cal State Dominguez Hills, that Cole Allen, the White House correspondent shooter, was at. In October, I published this with the Gateway Pundit, and it was a $800,000 grant. Guess where it was from exactly? And I'd say, Mike, this was in actually the first email I sent you. You can pull up. You can find that clip. It's a horizontal clip of the funding from the Department of Defense to Cal State Dominguez Hills for $800,000. And what office is it from? According to the Department of Defense, the Office of the Secretary of Defense. Pete Hegseth, his office sent $800,000 to this place that is teaching their students that the Trump administration hates him. Now, if Pete would have taken a shot, the irony, God forbid, that he would have been hit by someone trained at a place that he paid for with our money.
Yeah.
I've been screaming this like a crazy man since October. And this is what the Substack article that I published last night. Ad nauseum. So tiring to read because I am so tired with a heavy, weary heart of warning, ringing the bell day in and day out. I've sent Hegseth, Secretary of War, the War Department, Department of Education, the White House. I've tagged them. We've sent this to them hundreds of times.
I'm sure.
To deaf ears. And granted, right, that's been busy and I'm a nobody, but like I've been warning and waving the flag. And thank heavens that this guy tripped, despite the best efforts of the Secret Service to let him do it. Because
pretty much
there could have been a tragedy, the likes of which this country's never faced, with the line of succession that was there. And they paid for it. I've been telling them they've been paying for it over and over and over again. And it's a small chump change, but it's not just the $800,000. It's tens of millions of dollars from the Department of Education and Title IV funds from Linda McMahon and now Scott Bessent, to where that's being transferred to the Treasury Secretary as Linda McMahon is closing down the Department of Education.
Yeah.
We need to stop funding these universities because they're training students to think that we hate them. And I'll give you one last point here. And one of the reasons that I push back on that, what I call conservative slop of blaming left-wing social media sites and Reddit and whatnot for this, is they blame and radicalize people about Trump because they're lazy. Blue Sky, Reddit, Will Stancil, whoever. They're lazy. They just focus on orange man bad. What this guy wrote in his manifesto said that Trump administration. That echoes exactly the indoctrination, the systemic level understanding. It's an administration here, guys, including Hegseth. it's an administration. It's not a man. It's an administration, and that is exactly verbatim the words that were used on the video that I caught. And you have that too. If you cue
Is
it up.
the Fox News video? I've got that ready.
No, that doesn't show that one. It's the one that says Cal State president, anti-American hate. But I mean, either one works. But you can see him saying the same kinds of things. And you ask yourself, how does someone who write this crazy manifesto, how do you come up with these ideas? Where do they come from?
Mm-hmm.
You can see the way this guy teaches, and that's where they come from.
And it's the MO with most of these students and these protesters, right? That we come across. The No Kings are mostly boomers, but there's younger kids there, and from the colleges, and we're all white supremacists, we're all racist, we're all Nazis, right? Just because we don't agree with them, and it's only going to grow and get worse because they're pumping out so many of these indoctrinated kids every year from the universities. And our only hope to fight against that was Charlie Kirk. I mean, our only hope that was pushing back against that was Charlie, and I don't think we will never replace Charlie Kirk and this ability to have a civil conversation, right? A civil debate that's rational and makes sense. So now these universities, I think we're going to have a couple people standing up and trying to fill his shoes, but it's not going to be the same. And I'm concerned Turning Point will not flourish without him, which is a big problem for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
You got it, Mike?
I've got this queued up whenever you guys want to run it.
Yep. Go ahead.
Everybody knew this current federal administration was not liking black folk, was not liking Latino folk, and was not down with immigrants. Everybody knew that. And so a lot of our white counterparts have been victimized, I think, by the socialization that they have received. And some of that comes out of the family, some of that comes out of the schools, some of that comes out of their.
So one question that came in is, how can people of color respond to white fragility?
So I have never been apologetic about wanting to disrupt people. I want to dislodge them from that comfortable category of intellectual, emotional, and behavioral apathy that has them stuck in the way things are and them acting in the way that happens. And if I need to adjust or disrupt that fragility in order to do that, that is the only thing that is going to instigate change. If I make them too comfortable, then all they do is receive the information and passively go about doing it as if everything they're doing is okay. So I happen to be one that's unapologetic about being able to confront the fragility, because we need to be cognizant of how our minds and spirits have been contaminated by the residuals of racism and white supremacy.
So let me cue you to a few. He said, I am unapologetic. Now, you're teaching young, impressionable young adults. He said, I am unapologetic. He also said, it is the only way to get free of this, to disrupt and dislodge and to make the white fragility people uncomfortable, and be unapologetically so about it being the only way to make them uncomfortable, to dislodge and disrupt them. Now, juxtapose that on that manuscript. And he says the Trump administration wasn't liking black people, Latino people, immigrants. And if you look at the transcript of that versus the manifesto, you're not going to be able to tell who wrote and said which between the two guys. That's not Reddit. Sure. That's not Will Stansel. That's not MSNBC. Those people are getting their talking points from these people in the academy, building students who are raised to think that this is okay, from their college president right on down the line. I mean, I saw your face reacting when you heard that, Terry. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think when you hear something like that? You got kids in college.
It's absurd.
President talking like that.
And nobody's pushing back on, and I bet you there's dozens and dozens of videos like that of other professors or that are doing the exact same thing, and nothing's being done. Thank God you brought this forward, right? But this is happening across.
If it was professors, then people might say all these rhinos, all these weak-kneed Nancys, they may say, Well, yeah, there of course, there's always a couple crazy professors.
Yeah,
They'll
yeah.
be they'll get in trouble. They'll be held accountable by their institution, their organization, their administration, their leadership. No, this is the institution. This is the office of the
Mm,
president of that
yeah.
institution. And he was full-throated supported by the chancellor's office above him at Cal State. I worked at Cal State for 4 years on the tenure track. I know the system inside now. It is rotten to the core. They are jihadi terrorists training camps, these American madrasas. I should write a book and call it American
Hmm.
Madrasas because that's
Yes.
exactly what we've unveiled. That's what we've revealed here. They're
Did you
terror-based.
say that after this video and your stories came out on this, did you say he was removed from his position or retired or what happened?
He retired after that video. I don't think it was because of this. In fact, he had a vote of no confidence from his university for some other administrative reasons, it seems. But
Probably pocketing money.
He may have had, I think, the vote of no confidence before this video even came out, because, and I'll tell you guys, this moment, maybe as a bigger kind of reflection on where we're at as a culture and society, spiritually. So when that story came out, it made no waves. I thought it would make a splash. I thought he would respond. It
Mhm.
was, to me, it seemed like a dud and a nothing burger. And I was kind of frustrated and disappointed by it because,
Mhm.
I went out on a limb
Yeah.
to tell the truth
Yeah.
about this. So I was a diversity fellow from the American Psychological Association. This is my professional network that
Yeah.
invited
So
me
could
here.
you explain
I
a
needed a job.
could you explain what a diversity fellow means?
Yeah, sure. So when I was a PhD student at UC Davis, there are scholarships that pay for your graduate education. And this was one. It was a diversity fellowship from the American Psychological Association. And I applied for it like anything else. And in order to get that funding, you have to essentially meet one of 5 minimum qualifying criteria. You can either be from an underrepresented minority class, you could come from a background that was economically disadvantaged. You could also, quote, show a commitment to serving underrepresented minorities in your career, which just opens the door for basically
for anybody.
liberals. And
Yeah.
and then you can also come. I think I mentioned coming from an economically impoverished background, but you can also be conducting research that primarily focuses on underrepresented minorities. Now, I was conducting research at that time on memory impairments related to hippocampal damage that came from hypoxia, which is lack of oxygen from a heart attack, and stroke, which is cardiovascular disease, which disproportionately affects minority populations. I grew up in public housing on food stamps for years up in the northwest Chicago suburbs, so I came from the economic disadvantage. I have a Native American history as well, tracing back to the Dawes rules, but primarily, I qualified for actually 3 or 4 of those criteria. And I joked at the time, that was in 2009 when Obama got into office. People always ask me, like, how the heck do you get a diversity scholarship? And I would joke, I said, because I'm a straight white conservative during the Obama era. But that really, like I said, that was kind of how
I bet you your critics on the left, when they hear that, they probably attack you, right? How dare you, be a diversity scholar and you're attacking us.
I haven't got a lot of that. I mean, I was really fortunate. I had to work triply hard. This is the nature of discrimination. And, and I'm sure in earlier eras of American history, Black people can attest to the same experience of like having to work twice as hard to get to the same level. I'm sure that's happened to lots of people, the Irish, the Chinese, certainly African American, Hispanic. Like, I get it. Italian Americans, like this is the nature of kind of starting up in a new country. I had to work so hard to get to where I am and got really a lot of good qualifications, such that like I haven't received a lot of direct complaints of people about that, because they could see my qualifications and they're substantive. Like, my work speaks for itself scientifically in like the nerd world. You can read my papers and they're airtight. They are hammers scientifically of the discoveries we've made of new kinds of human memory, brain states that predict cognition. Really, pretty solid. So they haven't attacked me in that respect, but the path wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And now it is what it is. But
You
there
earned
comes
it. You didn't Elizabeth Warren your way there. You didn't emerge from your wigwam on the warpath determined to break into academia any way you could.
my ancestors are on the Dawes rolls. Her ancestors aren't. Like the Dawes rolls are from the Cherokee, from the Trail of Tears. My ancestors, I can trace them back there. She's got pow wow chow.
Yeah,
and she can eat.
Did you know she stole a bunch of those recipes from another book, and they tried coming after her?
Yeah,
I think she got the case dismissed. But anyway, that's a whole other story.
I mean, she's a clown. But the important part is that like when I was there with my professional network, because I had just been fired from Florida Tech 8 weeks prior to this video. So I was like, I got an email saying, hey, can you come to this like leadership development institute with this president of this university at the Cal State system that I used to work at. We lived in California. Maybe we could move back there. I was like, maybe this is an opportunity to regrow my career and reconnect with some colleagues in the diversity program for the American Psych Association. I have great friends. I have friends from the Minority Fellows program. They're very nice people to me. Like,
yeah,
a lot of times I thoroughly disagree with them. Other times I made some great friends with them, and we agreed on a lot of other things. But you end up there, you go there, and this is what happens. And as it turns out, this was a hostile environment for me as an educational man. I was there for professional education, for workforce development, and that actually violates Title IX. It violates the Civil Rights Act because it protects third parties on campus, not just students, not just employees. I have an active pending EEOC claim that we can tag and ask EEOC Chair Lucas, to get moving on the LA office that's been sitting there since December, because I have a right to be protected from this kind of hostile discrimination. Being told that because I'm white, he thinks I have residual white supremacy and I need to be disrupted and dislodged and made to feel uncomfortable. And then he's unapologetic for that. Excuse me? Hell no.
Yeah. So what is the solution, or what are things that people that are watching and hearing this dire news, right, about over here, about how bad the universities are? What can we do to try to change them in any capacity whatsoever? I mean, what are our options?
It's a great question. I'm going to be a little bit of an academic on that and give a layered answer. One layer is defund the universities.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't exist. I'm saying they should find their own way to exist. I'm saying they can get state funding. I'm sure California would love to continue supporting their schools. Great. God be with them. You don't need our Title IV federal funding, now probably coming from Scott Bessent and the Secretary of the Treasury.
Yeah.
The McMahon had been doing Title IV funds from the Department of Education. So,
what can a parent do? Okay, so I mean, I think we all agree with that, right? So to defund, I guess from the federal level, what things can we do to try to hit that goal? I mean, what do we do? Reach out to our congressman?
Yeah, I mean, all the standard political moves, right? Build the groundswell support, hit them on Twitter, chimp out when you have to. Chimping out works when necessary. Build the movements, get it educated, you guys are doing your part. You guys are giving a voice to this that, most people won't give a voice to. We have to get them aware of this. I think a lot of Congress people are busy, and that's me being very, very generous here, guys. I'm very, very generous in saying they're busy. Sometimes they're also extremely lazy.
Yes.
And they don't want to do the work after they think they put the vote in. Like, I was just off the phone with my congressman here yesterday. He said, well, we voted to end DEI. I said, the hell you did? And so they need to be reminded through the political process of what is truly happening like this. I would like to personally testify to the House and the Senate and share with them the inside stories that I'm sharing with you and more about what is true and happening when they pass these bills. Let me tell them how they're being lied to comply. These universities are required to self-certify that they're complying. How's that work with your teenagers, Terry?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That is an untenable process moving forward in America. So at that level politically, that's what parents can do. Get involved in that front. I think there's more, right? Educate the students. Stay involved with your kids. Don't just hand them off. This is no longer like I'm I'm an older millennial, so I think of like the movie Rudy as characterizing the boomer era of going to college, where he like just leaves and goes to South Bend, and you're just alone at college for 4 years. I'm sorry, like helicopter bit, like stay involved with your kids. Don't wait for them to come home on Thanksgiving with their junk cut off from the gender uniform
Hmm.
or something like that.
Yes,
Um,
issue. That's a good. Yep.
Stay involved. Stay in touch with your kids. Keep them educated, keep them aware, and it's not the age that it used to be, where you could trust the universities and just hand them off. Stay involved, pay attention.
Well,
Um,
I mean, I don't know if this suggestion is out of line, but one of the things I think of a lot that I've heard other scholars, people that research this subject bring up is part of the reason that things spike so far out of control, and this also has to do with tuition costs spiking up, 10 times over the rate of inflation, is when we federalize student loans. What about privatizing those again, getting the federal government out of the loan business, or making colleges co-signers to the student loan, so that they're not providing a good education where the student can go on and have a fruitful career. If they're ending up with a degree in grievance studies or underwater basket weaving or whatever other nonsense degree like we talk about, that maybe there'll be less of those degrees issued if there's some level of culpability put on the colleges, financial liability on the students they're churning out.
well, that's exactly right, Mike. So I was too much of a nerd in my answer earlier to Terry, but that's what Title IV funds are. That's what I was referring to.
Okay.
Title IV funds is federal financial aid.
Okay, sorry.
Those are the loans that are guaranteed by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, that has bloated the bubble and made colleges rich and your students poor. And
Hmm.
that's what I'm saying. Exactly that. Pull out that, get the federal government out of the student loan business. First of all, the other part to that is that's a different form of DEI, because one of the reasons the federal government got in was to guarantee that people could get loans who would never be able to get loans from the bank because they showed no propensity to be able to repay that money back. And so
Yes.
you put a lot of people in there, and now they're actually in a lot of debt slavery. So you have to get the government out, Mike. You're absolutely 100%. We call those Title IV funds. That's been under the control of the Department of Education, but now that's being transferred to the Secretary of Treasury, from what I understand, moving forward, because they're probably better suited in handling and processing the money than the Department of Education is. But we have to get that federal student loan money out and make the colleges figure out, how do I make a product that people want to buy and pay for with their own money that they can get from a private lender or from the state. The states, Terry, Illinois will love to pay for this.
Yeah.
Illinois will love to pay for it. Let them.
Yeah.
God be with them. Like the states
Yeah.
can pay. I'm not saying
Yeah,
that
yeah, they're paying for illegal colleges. They're giving scholarships for illegals to go to college. So they got a lot of money.
So I'm not saying the government doesn't have to be involved, but it should be taken.
Yeah.
Taking the federal side out is one way to do that, because that will cripple them and make them have to take a very.
So besides that, right? Besides that, like, at the high school level, you could, tell, we say it over and over, get on the school board, go to the school board meetings, get involved and stuff. But outside of like trying to hold back federal funds, what else are there any options besides that for parents that have kids in college or going to college or that want to help out?
That's a good question. I have to think about that more. Those are the two areas that my brain jumps to immediately. There are other ones. I mean, so I know you have students in college right now. So I can imagine that you feel what many parents feel during that time and transition as your students are making their way through school, which is like, in some respect, powerlessness of like, what can I do now? There isn't a school board I can go to in this case. But there are some aspects, they will shake you down for donations. The Alumni Affairs Office, Development Office, they do want parents to keep spending their money. They need parents to co-sign for loans most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You do have a voice. When they shake you down for, homecoming day or Parents' Day, let them know.
Yeah, I guess it's, I did on Parents' Weekend for one of my kids without saying which one. And one of the teachers said something about Charlie Kirk's death that pissed me off. And I wanted to go and try to find him and confront him. But then my wife was worried about my daughter, her education, her,
Or
um,
son,
she,
or son.
yeah, it could have been my son. Well, they kind of switch genders sometimes, so I get confused. So they change their genders on me, and worried about a backlash, just like she was worried about a backlash when they were in high school. One of the times my son was player of the week in football, and they called him. They put his name in there as Gavin Newsom instead of
Well,
Anthony.
well, here's an idea for you. Now you got me thinking. So I think that there needs to be the political will to take those Title IV funds that Mike was referring to. And I think that if you think about this in a political sense, that's kind of scary for a politician because culturally speaking, you
Hmm.
know, we hold college up on a pedestal, and it's really politically fraught to be tagged as the party or the politicians who are making college less accessible or taking away people's money to go to college. I think that they're scared by voters in that sense. And I think, speaking generationally, Terry, that I think particularly the older generation, the boomers,
Hmm.
hold college on a pedestal because of their memory of what they were taught that college was, or that
That's
they
how
remembered
important it
what
was then.
college
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
it's not the way that I remember seeing it in Rudy and South Bend. It's not the case, but I think that it's such a strong voting block of the older population
Well,
still, that one thing that can be done is reaching out when you talk to your representatives, your senators, your congresspeople, and let them know that you're okay with it, that it's that they will
Yeah.
have support if they do this, that this is not the college and university of yesteryear. This is a fundamentally different system. And I think the younger kids see that. They're like, yeah, like they kind of know the game. They see their professors, they see their teachers, and they know they're all getting by on Chat GPT and cheating. They know the professors are lazy. They don't feel like they're getting a good education. That's why they're going to podcasts like this and all the other big ones out there. And they will have an attention span for 3 hours and listen because they
yeah.
do have a craving to learn and be a
Hmm.
sponge and learn things. And they know their professors are not delivering that. So
Hmm.
I think letting the the policymakers know that they shouldn't be scared of that sort of political backlash. I don't know. I don't know that that's going to move the needle a whole
Yeah,
lot, but I think it's
Yeah.
still a valuable thing.
yeah.
Well, I think too, it's all these washed out hippies that are in Congress now or in positions of power. They want to feel relevancy again. They remember their time growing up in the '60s at these colleges were the incubator for the communism, the socialism that we see spreading throughout the country now. They're still nostalgic for that time. They want to recreate it on campuses, and that's what we're seeing right now with it now infiltrating even the grade school, especially with this May Day thing that just went on last Friday out in Chicago and a bunch of states, Wisconsin, Florida, all over the place, where they are now weaponizing grade school students and sending them out in the streets to do their bidding, to protest, evil orange Hitler and ICE and everybody else. That they want to call back to the '60s. They want that social turmoil where they took over the college campuses for real and ended education as it should have been and could have been.
Hmm.
And the next step in that equation was the Department of Education. When that was created, our students have gotten worse and worse grades ever since. We have to go back to a system that actually focuses on real education. I mean, that's the bottom line. We've got to get all these social justice warriors and just mental cases out of our schools and get schools focused on what their real mission is once again, and that is education, not indoctrination.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I'm on the advisory board for a group called STARS, which is Service Members Standing Against Radicalization and Racism in the Services. Very military focused, very military oriented, about wokeifying the service academies, but writ large, ending DEI and critical race theory and COVID tyranny against service members, their families, civilians, and that they've been very effective in lobbying and working with their networks in respects to the academies. They have a lot of work to do still, but you know we're pretty committed to building that out, and I think that not giving up the ship. Like these are people who are all oftentimes retired flag officers, general officers, who could very easily be having a cushy retirement. But like you, Terry, they're standing their post and they're saying, "I'm not going quietly into the night." They are doing a whole new term of service right now, and we need them to. We need their leadership, but we need the younger people to step up and to do that too. So, I was thinking about, what you were saying, Terry, and as a parent, my kids are very little, but I'm the oldest of 7. I saw my younger siblings, who are now 30s, go through this. And what I would say too to parents is like, how they used to say you had to have like the talk with the kids, whether it was when they're entering the teenage years or, whatever it is. But I think there's a new kind of talk that you got to have with the kids. And by that, I mean, like, I think, they're feeling it too. They know the economic pressures they're under.
Yeah.
And letting them know that, like, look, college, if you're going to go there, it is kind of a rubber stamping process of a certification. And yes, it is a lot of nonsensical classes that you don't need, and I know you don't need, but we can't do anything to stop them from requiring you to take them as
Yeah, my kid's going through that right now, my son. Sorry to interrupt you. He's like, so go ahead.
No, so this can be a bonding experience across the generations of the parents and kids then. Because usually they go and like, I don't want to take this. And you're like, no, you got to take it. No, this time you're like, no, you don't need to eat these vegetables. You just have to eat the vegetables. Like this time you're like, I agree with you. Yeah. It sucks and it's stupid and they are just forcing you to do it. But like bridge the divide and let them know, like, so I'm going to be 44. So I grew up in the era when it was like scoffed at and looked down upon if you went back home after college. It's like, oh, you're a loser. Like, let them know, no, we're intergenerationally supporting our family and our nation. You will have a place to come home to if you need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You will not be, given this thing that people are led to think like I have to, like, letting them know that you're in this together with them and that we will build a family unit long past college, and that
I'm like that.
I think we'll like help them understand that you see what they see, because I think what a lot of students see is that things are fucked, and when you let them know, hey, I see that too, I think there's a commiserating element that then that you build a little bit of trust, and when things come up, they can be a little bit more easy to reach out to you as parents during those college years and ask for the help that they might have been independent on otherwise, or just shouldered quietly, because we have to do this together and they have to know that. And, because there may be times. So here's a great point. Brian Harrison, local state senator in Texas. He has single-handedly destroyed the cucked out rhino Republicans in Texas who have held Texas A&M hostage to DEI, because he personally worked with students who got undercover audio and videotape of the tranny indoctrinations happening, not just from the professors, but that was approved when they appealed to the department chair. Then she went to the chancellor and president of Texas A&M. Brian Harrison went and helped them expose that with Steve Bannon on the War Room, hammering month in and month out, and they got that to end. That was because of a coalition between the younger generation of the students in class who had parental support, who reached out together with their state politicians. And Brian Harrison is probably one of the good ones, and he rallies against the rhino establishment in Texas. And if you know anything about Texas politics, it's all hat and no cattle. And Brian's one of those exceptions. Terry, I think that's the way to go, man. Like it's stay in the fight together.
Yeah, we talk regularly about it, and I tell them, you're in school to learn how to learn, and you have to learn how to accept things you don't want to do. That's how I'm trying to tell them about the shitty classes, so it's part of the process, and you're not always going to be able to do what you want to do in a job, and it's part of, that's how I go through it. So why don't tell people a little bit about your nonprofit, where they could find it, because I have to get ready. I'm debating this guy named Brian Shapiro, who's been podcasting and debating big names for 20 years. So I'm going to be like the minor leaguer here. I got to get ready for this debate. It's at 9:00 on my time.
Oh, geez. Well, you're going to do great. So I have a Give, Send, Go fundraiser. It's called The Truth Is Not For Sale. It's www.givesendgo.com/GJ3G6. It's the random identifier.
Text me the link, and I'm going to tweet it out on our Ex-American News account right when we get off air.
Yeah. It's called www.givesendgo.com/GJ3G6. And it's The Truth Is Not For Sale. What I'm trying to do is raise $1 more than the $96,000 that they threatened to silence me on, so that you couldn't know the truth of everything that we're talking about inside academia from behind those closed doors with the presidents, the provosts, the deans, and the professors laughing behind your back, defrauding DeSantis, defrauding Trump. And it desperately helps. And my family, I'm unemployed. I have a litigation case that we're doing. We're suing Florida Tech, and we are winning. We just beat a motion to dismiss against the Florida
Great.
Institute of Technology. They are defended by Boyce Schiller law firm that Hunter Biden worked at, that defended
Jesus Christ.
all Hillary Clinton, and we're going up against him with Anthony Sabatini, who just declared his run for Congress and is going in hot against the biggest law firm in the country, defending the
Wow.
wokest president that we caught lying on DEI. They tried to throw it out. We beat the motion to dismiss. We already got discovery on some of the details. We're going to get more soon. We're going to depose the president. I'll depose any congressman, any lobbyist, even the governor if I have to. We're going to find out who cucked where, and we need all the support we can get. My family needs it, man. We've had some great angels helped us, but we are sore. We're hurting, and this is the price of telling the truth. And our children have to know that we're willing to pay the price, but the next whistleblowers have to know that they're going to have a backstop and support so that they can tell you the next thing that's going to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
So you'll put that up, Mike.
Thank you, though, seriously, and earnestly, from me and my family's heart, to everyone who has donated. It has meant the world, and we need to send a clear message that you're not allowed to do this, and that you can't buy the truth, you can't buy our silence, and you'll never be able to buy our integrity.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Lauber, you want to do your closing statement so I could go get prepared for my my
beat
debate
this guy's
here?
ass in the debate.
I'm gonna try.
I know you got some good advice from Annie earlier, so hopefully you smoke this fool.
Yeah.
But guys, again, we talk about this all the time. The left has this disgusting support network that will go out, pay people's bail money, pay for their attorneys, reward them with hundreds of thousands of dollars because they went and attacked an ICE agent or tried to assassinate somebody or did assassinate somebody. Well, you got to prioritize things. It's going to take sacrifice from all of us to get things done. So if you can afford to, go to this link. I'm going to tweet it out, like I said, right after we get off air. Rick, text it to me so I can find it here quick. I'm looking through my old messages trying to find it. I know I've got it, but be helpful if you send it to me again. I'm going to tweet it out next American News. And if you guys have, $20 even, that makes a huge difference for somebody that is struggling like this. Because again, make no mistake, part of the intention is to silence voices like Rick, to send a message, scare them so they won't come forward. They won't bring this information because they know that will be detrimental to their career, that they won't be able to work again in their field. They will have a target on their back for the rest of their life. So it takes a lot of courage to come forward and do something like this. It's why I have such an affinity for a lot of these FBI and CIA and other whistleblowers, why I've had them on my program and this program so many times, because these are the people that are on the inside that know the details. They have the dirt. They know where the bodies are buried, but they also know their life is over if they come forward and do anything. So it does take people like you to make a difference there, since obviously our government is way off base on this stuff and intentionally harms people like this that come forward and expose what's going on the inside. But guys, thank you for joining us today. Rick, thank you for being here. To our audience, please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media